Hi there, it's Richard Little joining you once again from your land partner, and this is video 75 out of series of 100. So if you're only just joining us, there's 74 others prior to this, taking us through the whole property development sort of cycle from finding the elusive opportunities and turning them into deals, taking them all the way through planning, funding, etc. And now we're getting towards the sort of juicy bit, which is the build. We're just tackling pre-construction, so that's generally the period from planning consent through to on-site, but actually in fact, as I'll explain to you very shortly, we take a slightly different view on that. So what we're actually going to focus on for a couple of videos is the who. Actually the people behind the pre-construction, the key player effectively is what we're going to focus on today, which is the project manager. Now, who is the project manager? What is a project manager and what do they need to do? When you engage a project manager, a bit of an idea of what this might cost. So a few do's and don'ts, or a few suggestions from our point of view anyway. So as ever, much of what we talk about is going to be based on our own experience over 40 odd years of getting it right and getting it wrong. Let's talk about project management. What does, so let's talk about what does the project manager do really. From our point of view, our project management starts right at the beginning, right? Actually, when we're actually looking at appraising deals, etc. So we have our project management, which are in-house or in family. Actually, it's not actually in-house, but it's in family. Do a lot of our appraisal stuff, and they're involved right from the beginning. So our actual project management starts with the design management, the design team management. Once we've secured an opportunity, so once we've actually got some legal entitlement over it in some form or other, then the project management team are involved right from that point. And it doesn't work like this for everybody, but we do believe that project management, and we'll talk about who you use, is really, really important to get involved right early on. So our project managers, and they're always the same all the way through, they are actually involved right from the beginning, and they actually start with the design team management. And all the associated surveys and things like that, because as a lead developer we control all of that. We do not let any of that out of the family, if you like, or out of the sort of slightly wider family. We have a few partners and that we work on with this. Now I appreciate that doesn't always work for everybody, and a lot of this will actually be services that you buy in. So other things that the project manager does all the way through is obviously they'll start getting into the detailed design once we actually get to post planning. Won't be as much detail in the planning process, but we have to have one eye on the whether something's buildable. From a building regulation point of view, and actual the logistical, how buildable. So that's why we have them really on board really early, because they're going to give us the view of how buildable is something. You can design something, you can design anything on paper. We've seen some fantastic designs, but they're not very buildable. In fact, we've seen quite a few that aren't even possible to be built, but that's another video. So they'll also deal with important things like utility management. Utilities is a nightmare for many people. Scopes of work, schedule of works, whatever you might want to call it. So all the sort of pre-tendering stuff, pricing, contractor selection, programming, and pretty much everything. So the key is it's not so much the project manager, it's the project management process. So what is actually required. So I will say at this point that we don't always have, as I already said, the same project managers all the way through. Now, people think that's the right thing for continuity, but actually it isn't necessarily, because it's quite feasible that a project manager, in fact, it's not just feasible, it's actual, is some project managers are fantastic at pre-construction and possibly post-construction, because they're much more paperwork based. And other project managers are actually quite good on site. Depends on the involvement. Again, we'll talk about that shortly. And so it's different people sometimes. So what one would say, to a degree, is that largely in the paperwork side, we need attention to detail. Whereas actually when we're on site, we still need attention to detail, but we also need people skills. You know, real sort of the ability to read people, the ability to put your arm around people, kick them up the bum, whatever is necessary. So the who, I suppose, is you know, who are they? Well, project manager for us, it's all about dedicated project managers, so professional project managers. Now, project managers can come from various branches of the consultants, if you like. Architects can provide a project management role, as can QSs, as can engineers, etc. So it isn't necessarily all about the label, the title. It's actually, have these people delivered? And what is it we're asking them to deliver? So from a project manager, you know, so depending on your procurement route, you might want a light touch project manager. So if you're going the full route in terms of you've got main contractors appointed, etc., then you're going to have quite a lot of project management up to the point they get on site. And once they get on site, it isn't necessarily a daily thing. You know, it's actually what we call a much more light touch. So you would take perhaps the sort of role that maybe a more sort of more professional, another professional, like perhaps an architect typically would do. They might make a visit once a month and write a report, etc. But they're not going to get involved in much more than that. Now, the other end of that is if you are the project, if you are the main contractor as the developer, then you're project manager, and you can call them all sorts of things. We're talking about project management. They can have site managers, contract managers, all sorts of different titles under them. What we're actually talking about is the what's actually entailed in project management. So for us, it's about dedicated project managers. They don't do anything else. That's all they do. All they do. There'll be a few of them sort of say, "What do you mean that's all we do?" And so that's what they do all the time. So as I say, whether you need a light touch or whether you want fully immersed is dependent on your procurement, how you're buying it in. As I say, whether you're buying in a main contractor or you are becoming a main contractor, or it's a bit of a hybrid. So it depends what you actually need. And the project manager may well have a team underneath them as well. So, you know, might have a project manager that might have, you know, control or management over maybe 8 or 10 sites, but they won't do that on their own. You know, we're comfortable with, you know, a project manager if they're relatively, you know, if they're immersed in the project, and we prefer them to be because they're proactive. Then they're looking for things that aren't going well. They do a bit of firefighting from time to time, but they're also keeping us in front. They're keeping us on schedule. So we've all heard the thing about on time and on budget, and I've heard so many people say, "No, you can't get it on time and on budget." And I will tell you right now, mostly that's down to poor project management, not the guys didn't turn up on time. That's what the project manager might be doing. You know, so, and this is all set in on time and on budget is set in the pre-construction phase. You know, the more prepared you are, the more chance you've got on time and on budget. So if you're not on time and not on budget, you know, it might be unrealistic time frame or unrealistic budget, but it's more likely poor project management. And that doesn't mean to say you've got a poor project manager. You have to manage your manager. As a lead developer, whatever role you're playing, is you've got to manage them. You've got to allow them. You've got to create those boundaries, what they can do, what they can't do, what decisions can they make on your behalf, or are you gonna get 4 phone calls a day every time that they're making a decision? You know, you could give them a financial limit. You can do all sorts of things. So, you know, so sort of coming back to on time and on budget is possible. You know, and I'm sorry if you've never had it, then you need to really look at that and look at the way you're procuring, look at the people involved. And I'll be a bit harsh here and say you might be the problem. You know, I've been the problem in the past, so I can say that. You know, the reason that we haven't actually delivered is because I've got something wrong. I haven't planned. I've taken too much on, so I wasn't able to give enough time to a project because I'm doing it on another project. So, you know, so it's being mindful of, again, not overloading the project manager or the project management team. And so, you know, so what do they need to be? As I said, we're talking about attention to detail. I think overall, I always sort of say we need our project managers to be persistent and patient. And the balance of that will depend on what they're doing, because sometimes we nearly need to be really tenacious and get on something and not let go. So another two words you could probably use was, you know, sometimes they've got to be diplomatic, and sometimes they've got to sort of, you know, be a bit pushy, be bully, if you like. You know, I mean, that's probably not the right word or not an acceptable word, but I think most people will know what I mean. They've got to push. You know, so if somebody's not delivering on their, you know, if they're managing the design team, they're waiting for an engineer to come back with a report and they're not doing them, you know, you keep going. You know, I mean, you know, two of our project managers, or two of the people on our project management team, they will start and they will be quite diplomatic and quite polite. One's better at it than the other one, to be fair. And you know, they will sort of, perhaps it's, you know, well, twice a week, but if they've gone past their time they said they're going to be, they'll be phoning them every hour if they need to. They will bombard them. Now, I won't call that bullying. I'll say that's persistence. When somebody doesn't deliver, and you are the project manager, if somebody else doesn't deliver, it has ramifications, implications all the way down the line of the project, because no doubt somebody else is waiting for that report or waiting for something to be done so that they can get on. And so this is the you know, the real skill of the project manager is we can sometimes call it firefighting, we can sometimes call it good organisation, but it's the old thing about, you know, the serene looking swan, you know, sort of, and paddling furiously underneath, sort of thing. And you know, so a good project manager will never be out of control, never seem to be out of control, and it might be in their head seething, but actually that's not the way to get things done. We get project managers that shout a lot, and I'm not saying shouting is maybe occasionally it's the right thing to do, but generally that's not the way. It's all about managing people, so recognising everybody. So a good project manager won't just have one sort of one method, if you like. Their best thing is recognising who they're dealing with and use the right style of management with that person. Not, I'm the project manager, this is what I want, but actually to get the best out of everybody that they're dealing with. So we already sort of said we're talking about dedicated project managers. The other thing that I get quite a lot is we get a lot of project managers coming into the industry from other industries, project managers. So if you know how to manage a project and deliver, there's a lot of transferable skills, but there's a lot that's different. Yeah, and a lot of that is not necessarily the people skills, because project managers in other sectors we've learned over the last few years, again, they've got very different skills, you know, very different characteristics. So some of them have got some good transferable skills, but they need a lot more support. Being blunt here, they need a lot more support than they think they do. As with any sector, I suppose, if you come from another sector, a lot of the stuff, same role, is a similar thing, whether it's accountancy, whatever it might be. You know, it's very similar, but actually it's the nuances, it's the 5, 10, 15, 20% of the business that is just not necessarily common sense, if you like. It's actually, you know, once you know it, but until you know it, it's a complete mystery. So, you know, there's many people that make good project managers. Do they need to be qualified as a project manager? Sometimes they'll need to be, because your project manager is the key person from your funder. So if you're going for development funding, they're going to want to know who's managing this project, who effectively is in charge of part of the delivery. So again, that will depend whether it's a light touch or a heavy touch, as to, you know, as to how important that is. But so there may well be an expectation that they've got some qualifications. More often than not, you know, they've got to be insured fully. That's what people are looking for. But the key thing here is, have they delivered before? So your project manager or a project that you're looking at, who to hire, yeah, is that, have they produced? Have they delivered? pre-construction, you can deliver pre-construction on a project from 5 units to 500 units. Is it different? Well, yeah, it is. It isn't different in all the processes and all the various parts of it. The design team management and bringing all the paperwork together. And looking at building control, looking at warranties, looking at agreements, so Section 38s and Section 106s and all this sort of stuff. But actually you're dealing with bigger teams generally on bigger projects, so it is different. So you really need somebody that's perhaps project managed in pre-construction and when you get to on site for similar types of size projects and type of project as well. So if you're delivering something maybe for a housing association, you might be building some houses or some apartments. Is it so much different than actually building some for the market? It absolutely is, yeah, because the exit is different, and so there's more pressure coming at the end in terms of show units and getting access to those show units. Whereas if it's to a RSL, a registered provider, then actually, it's much more about, what have we achieved? Where's our milestones? What's our program? Are we meeting our program? And some involvement potentially with the finances as well, or managing that process. So, in essence, the project manager is the absolute key to delivering a successful project. Not necessarily just on time and on budget, but to the specification, to the standard that you expect. And if you're engaging, if you're employing a project manager, whether you're actually taking them on to work for you directly, or whether you're doing it on a contract basis, if you like, which is perfectly possible, then it's making sure that you are getting the right amount of communication between you and them and their team. How is that working? And if you just leave it to your project manager, they won't thank you for it. But then if you're after them, every second of the day and want to be copied into everything, then they won't thank you for that either. And I think, it's very easy that the project manager generally is the one that takes the flak. They'll get the blame for everything because they're sitting in the middle. They're sitting in the middle of everybody. It's a hard, very pressured role to take on, and so you've got to get it right. So if you think of doing it yourself, which some people can, they've got the skills, but you perhaps need some support on it, from other providers or consultants, etc. So the other thing is, well, okay, what does project management cost? Well, this is purely down to the size of the project, because that will dictate how long you're going to be involved, how much time you're going to be on it, and again, if it's a light touch or a heavy touch. So if you're just overseeing perhaps a main contractor on behalf of the developer or the client, if you like, from the project manager's point of view, then it might be, a couple of times a month. It may only be perhaps half a day a month, something like that. And most fees are either based on time based, but by the day, by the hour, or whatever, or on a percentage basis. So if we're looking at what the costs are likely to be on a percentage basis, they're going to vary from reasonably large jobs where the project management might be 2%, something like that. I've seen it lower, but 2% is probably, you're going to get a decent level of service for that, up to 12 and 15% if it's on smaller projects, because the project manager ends up doing everything, ordering the materials and everything. So they take on multiple roles, and it's hard work. So if you're doing a £200,000 conversion into four apartments or something like that, you're going to expect to pay 10%, I would imagine, on that sort of thing, because it's 20 grand and there's going to be a lot of work, because that same project manager can perhaps go and work on a much bigger project for a similar amount of time and get that money much easier. So expect to pay on smaller projects a lot more for your project management. And I'm going to be honest here now and say this is where a lot of people get it wrong on what they would call perhaps smaller projects or projects that they think they can manage themselves. This is why a lot of those projects go cost overruns and also time overruns, because they weren't prepared to invest in a project manager, or they perhaps overestimated their own abilities to manage. Now, I've seen some fantastic people that have never done project management at all, never mind in another sector, not at all. And they come on, and because it's a process thing, it's right, we need to do this, understand what you need to do when you need to do it, and actually get in touch, get on it, chase people up, pull it all together. And some people are absolutely brilliant, but they are, or you are, any of you that are listening, watching to this, you are in a minority, and you actually know whether you're any good at it or not. Because if you are managing a project, and I'll take a probably slightly controversial view, if it keeps you awake at night, then generally you're either working for the wrong people, which may be down to you or maybe not, you didn't find that out until later, or you're actually not as good as you think you are, or you've taken on too much. Yeah. So the key for me is, if your project is keeping you awake, yeah, then there's something wrong. So if you're taking a project on and you perhaps haven't done it before, you're probably going to be worried about things you don't need to be worried about. And sometimes you're not concerned about things you don't even know about. And they're the things that end up often with time and cost overruns. So, I have some quite sort of, what would we say, healthy debates, shall we say, when I talk to people. When you talk behind the scenes to people about things that have overrun and all that, and we try and have a little look at it too, because you're going to learn those lessons for the next time. So even if it hasn't gone well, so that's when you sometimes get your best lessons. Why hasn't that project gone well? Okay, what have you done? Who have you brought in? Because there's a lot. There's some project managers out there that I wouldn't give tuppence for. Just because this the other thing here is we was brought up to sort of on the basis that you get what you pay for. That doesn't work in the world of consultants, and I don't know about other sectors, but it doesn't in our industry. So you could be paying a high percentage or tip-top daily rate for somebody. That doesn't really say they're any good. Yeah, it means they're good at perhaps marketing and selling their ability. But I've seen some atrocious project management, which has caused major problems for developers and funders and investors and everybody else. But they talk a great game. It's all about, have they recently delivered a project of that size? So when you're selecting somebody. But I would, sort of get towards the end and give a word of caution, is when you're looking to take something on yourself. Just think about that again and actually talk to somebody that actually understands, what managing a project is. There are a few people out there that they're not selling their services. They're quite happy to give you, a view of some of the things that you might come across, and that they will perhaps keep you awake at night. So sometimes if you are the developer or part of the development team, being the project manager isn't always the best thing anyway, because it'll always take up more of your time than you think it is. It can become, even a relatively small project like a refurb, for instance, you can suddenly be involved every day of the week, which is fine if that's the way you want to do it and you want to be hands-on. But actually, if you think that you're going to just go to site once a week and just have a chat and all that sort of thing, you're not really being realistic about some of the challenges that projects face, shall I say. Anyway, so we talk about project managers all the time, but the bullet points for me on a project manager is, for us, say, not necessarily for everybody, it's dedicated project manager in as early in the project as absolute possible, so they get an understanding for it. And if you've not worked with them before, you start getting a relationship going together. Create an open line of communication, get an understanding of what they need from you, and get them to understand what you need from them. Don't be too, egotistical, shall I say, in pretending you know stuff you don't. The project manager, good project manager, they're not there to sort of, hoodwink you or anything like that. They're there to make your project, help your project come in on time and on budget, and to the right standards, etc. So it's not just all about money, and so getting the right project manager on board, and also if it's the wrong project manager, don't be afraid to ditch them, mid-project. It's a pain, but much better to ditch the wrong project manager. And the other thing here is for project managers, ditch your wrong client mid project, as long as you're okay from your contract side of things. So either way, if it's not working, part company. Yeah, so it's Richard Little from Your Land Partner here again. Their last video sort of obviously got fed up of me talking, so it cut itself off. So I was virtually at the end, but I'm just adding this 75A to video 75, just sort of bullet points on project managers, and really it's absolutely essential that the project management part of this process, it's the key. There's lots of other keys and different people and different things, but it's the thread that runs all the way through the project. It's good project management. And but as I say, if it's not working out, change it. Don't always have to have the same project manager on pre-construction and as on site. We don't. It's often somebody different when we get on site, because it might be somebody more local for us, but it's always going to be somebody we know or we can manage. So project managers need to be managed as well. You can't allow them to manage you. It's about finding that good relationship, good communication. Some sort of you've got to be prepared to have some blunt conversations as well with project managers. They don't really have to need to manage you. If you're the developer, you need to be, allowing them, to do what they need to do. So if they've got a pussyfoot around you and things like that, that makes their job even harder. And believe me, it's probably, I would say it's singly the hardest job in development and construction is the project manager. Don't mean to say that the guys on site wheeling barrows of concrete don't work hard. They do, but actually from delivery of projects, whether it's a relatively small refurb to an infrastructure project like HS2 or something like that, where they've got massive teams of project managers, it's absolutely key, because nothing else will happen. It'd just be chaos without that thread of management. So don't take it on yourself if unless you've done it before or you are really good. And you know how confident you are, not how confident you might be outwardly, how confident you are inwardly in your head. Do you feel confident? And actually, nothing wrong with actually taking something on if you can get some support. You might be able to take something on and get a bit of support, perhaps from your architect or your QS or whatever, that will give you a little bit of ad hoc, pay by the hour or whatever, to help you project manage. Because it's a great thing for many people to do, because all the way through pre-construction, you understand that project like no one else. That is the project manager's role. They bring it all together. As I say, I'll talk about project management because it's just so important, and undervalued as well. I'm going to have to say, it's something. You always negotiate. You're always going to negotiate on fees, and that I understand that. But don't try and cut costs on project management, because it's very difficult to say, because you can't ever prove it, because once it's gone, it's gone. But I would maintain over my 40-odd years doing this, 44 years now, of doing it, that if you skimp on the project management, as long as it's, like I said, you don't always get what you pay for. They've got to be the right project managers for you. If you skimp on it, you will regret it, and will undoubtedly cost you more money, more time, more hassle. So it's a real big up for the project managers wherever they come from. So it's been Richard Little from Your Land Partner. So 75 and 75A out of the 100 videos. So we're in the build phase now. We're in pre-construction, but we really wanted to do a session on project managers. And the next video is going to be about some of the other consultants, and you're all just as important, but only in a smaller way. So it's been Richard Little. See you again another day. Take care.